Good morning, and I'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Regent Atwell,
Here.
Regent Baling,
Here.
Regent Delgado,
Here.
Regent Erickson, Regent Evers, Regent Farrow, Regent Greeby,
Here.
Regent Hall, Regent Higgins,
Here.
Regent Jones,
Here.
Regent Klein,
Here.
Regent Milner,
Here.
Regent Mueller,
Here.
Regent Peterson,
Here.
Regent Ring,
Here.
Regent Stile,
Here.
Regent Tyler,
Here.
Regent Whitburn.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Good morning. In recognition of Veterans Day on Saturday, we are honored this morning to have with us the University of Wisconsin Naval ROTC Color Guards, commanded by Color Sergeant Midshipman 2nd Class Evan Lalensack. At this time, I would ask that we all stand and rise for the entrance and presentation of the colors.
Right, face, forward, march, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right,
You may be seated. At this time, I'd like to invite any and all veterans and active military personnel in the room to please stand and be recognized. We thank all those who wear, have worn, or will wear the uniform in service of our country. We have a deep respect and gratitude for those who serve both on and off the battlefield, those who stand on guard to ensure our freedom and our way of life. And thank you. Moving next to our next item on the agenda, number 2, minutes of the October 2017 Board of Regents meeting have been provided. May I have a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and thank you. Before we proceed with today's business, President Cross has an introduction. President Cross.
I would like to personally thank the University of Wisconsin Naval ROTC Color Guard. They stepped out of the room. I was going to recognize them. I know we've already introduced Evan Lalensack, but I'd also like to introduce Midshipman 2nd Class John Tilstra, Midshipman 3rd Class Alex Canny, Midshipman 3rd Class Katrina Katula, and Midshipman 3rd Class Marin Kirkland. And it's an honor to have those folks with us. So would you just join me in? Come on in, gentlemen and ladies. Come on in. Let's give them a nice hand. It is important that we honor them and from an Army person, even if they are of the Navy. So we're going to say, careful. Careful. Thank you very much. We appreciate it very much. I'm also pleased to introduce this morning Eric Arneson, Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs and Campus Climate at UW Green Bay. Eric, would you stand? There you are. Okay. Eric comes to, yes. Eric comes to the UW system from Florida International University, where he served as Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs. He has worked for more than 2 decades in various aspects of university administration in the Midwest and in the southern part of the U.S. Eric earned a doctorate in higher education from Florida International University, a Master's of Arts in College Student Personnel from Bowling Green, and a BS in Political Science from UW La Crosse. So welcome aboard, Eric. It's nice to have you with us. We look forward to working with you. Thank you. Back to you, President Bailey.
Thank you. Typically on the agenda, this is where I would give my president's report. However, since this is not a 2-day meeting, and given that we have a significant topic this afternoon that I want to make sure we allow enough time for, I'm going to hold my comments until this afternoon. So with that, I will turn it back to President Cross to give his report of the president from around the system. President Cross, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Bailey. I'd like to open my report today with an overview of several key legislative initiatives we're currently following at the state level. We've been working closely with legislators on a bill that is being introduced to enact many of the capital flexibilities we sought as part of our 2017-19 budget request. The bill incorporates the State Building Commission threshold changes that were included by Governor Walker in his executive budget proposal, but were removed as non-fiscal policy items at the beginning of the budget process. Other related legislation addresses enhanced operational authority for the board for capital budget and planning. This would include authority for the board to fund program revenue-supported capital projects with the proceeds of UW revenue bonds authorized for issuance by the State Building Commission, as well as the authority for the board to approve and manage building projects funded by non-GPR funds. We're also working with legislators on proposals to reform and update the administrative rules governing the UW system, as well as legislation to update our accountability and reporting requirements to eliminate outdated reports and make the reports we're currently submitting much more meaningful. All of these bills are aimed at giving us more flexibility, allowing us to operate more efficiently and effectively. On the federal front, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was released on November the 2nd. This is the House Republicans' proposal for revision of the federal tax code. The House Ways and Means Committee has been debating the bill this week. Meanwhile, the Senate has said it will not use the House bill and will start from scratch. There are several issues that would have both direct and indirect impacts on public colleges and universities. More specifically, the bill consolidates 3 tax credits that taxpayers may claim for credit for post-secondary expenses: the American Opportunity Tax Credit, the Lifetime Learning Credit, the Hope Scholarship Credit. They give students an extra year, but at half the rate of support. Graduate students or lifelong learners would lose those tax benefits. The bill would also repeal the current student loan interest deduction. There's also provision that reduces the cost of graduate education and mitigates the tax liability of graduate students teaching and researching as part of their academic programs. The provision is critical to the research endeavor for major universities like UW-Madison and UW-Milwaukee, particularly in the critical STEM fields. For all these reasons, the UW system will work closely with our higher education partners and our elected officials in Congress as we look to recommend tax policy changes. We also are continuing to work to extend the federal Perkins Loan Program. Despite its expiration, there is strong bipartisan support for this in both the Senate and the House. So far, 238 members have signed legislation to revive it. In your packets today is a fact sheet that was distributed across Capitol Hill offices last week. It shows the impact of the federal Perkins Loan Program on public and private colleges and universities in Wisconsin. We hope our elected officials and leaders will find a way to extend this program until simplification of all student loan programs, which is the agenda, actually becomes a reality. So now for news from around the system.
WisPolitics partnered with UW Extension to offer economic roundtables in Hudson, Richland Center, and Sheboygan. Experts from the Department of Revenue, Division for Business and Entrepreneurship, and Cooperative Extension shared data with community leaders to help drive future economic growth. UW Marshfield Wood County celebrated the opening of its Everett Rail STEM Center. This UW College's facility houses chemistry, microbiology, and certified nursing assistant programs. The state-of-the-art center features simulation labs, flexible classrooms, and study spaces designed to enhance student-teacher interactions. UW Whitewater celebrated the grand opening of the Mary Poppy Christmas Success Center. The facility helps students succeed with supplemental instruction from qualified tutors. The center was made possible thanks to a generous donation from alumnus Byron Chris Christman in honor of his late wife, Mary. UW Superior's Lake Superior Research Institute celebrated its 50th anniversary. The event reflected on LSRI's accomplishments in environmental research and set the stage for the next 50 years. Alexandra Cousteau, granddaughter of Jacques Cousteau, spoke about the importance of water conservation at the event. UW Stout celebrated the naming of the new Robert Cervenka School of Engineering. The late founder of Phillips Plastics and his wife Debbie donated $2.5 million to the engineering school. UW Stout has more than 1,000 students enrolled in engineering majors. Music student Zach Finnegan has found inspiration and mentors at UW Stevens Point. Zach spent the summer in intense music study thanks to music professors Brent Turney and Matt Buchman, who helped find scholarships and wrote letters of recommendation. He hopes to teach after graduate school. UW River Falls celebrated the opening of a new facility for Winfield United. This subsidiary of Land O'Lakes provides products and services to help farmers optimize yields. It moved its operations from Minnesota to River Falls because of a long-standing relationship with the College of Agriculture, Food, and Environmental Sciences. UW Platteville broke ground on the Williams Fieldhouse expansion. This project will increase fitness and training space for the Pioneer community and 16 varsity athletic teams. It will include basketball and volleyball courts, a running track, and a modern training room. UW Parkside's library was named the 2017 Library of the Year by the Wisconsin Library Association. The association cited the library's successful Big Read program, among other events, and praised UW Parkside for having a diverse academic library. UW Oshkosh held grand opening celebrations in October for two student-focused buildings. The Reeve Memorial Union and Fletcher Residence Hall underwent transformations to make the spaces more accessible, up-to-date, and responsive to student needs. UW Milwaukee physicists are at the cutting edge of astrophysical discoveries and opening new avenues of research. UWM played a key role in discovering gravitational waves, and that work contributed to the 2017 Nobel Prize in Physics. The research also confirmed a prediction Einstein made 100 years ago. To support ongoing mosquito control efforts in the wake of Hurricane Harvey, two UW-Madison students have flown to Texas to help trap and identify mosquitoes. Melissa Farquhar and Aaron McGlynn will monitor for disease-spreading species of mosquitoes and determine the effectiveness of control efforts. The U.S. Department of Education awarded the UW La Crosse McNair Scholar Program $1.1 million. At least 50% of the McNair Scholarship students major in STEM fields. Since the program began in 2010, 78% of alumni have enrolled in graduate studies. UW Green Bay's Gateways to Phoenix Success program helps students be successful. GPS is a free, high-impact experience for first-year college students which provides tools and support to help eliminate gaps in academic achievement. GPS students are significantly more likely to graduate on time compared to other underrepresented students. UW Eau Claire's Towers Residence Hall is now called Carlgard Towers in honor of alumni David and Marilyn Carlgard. The couple's history of giving to the UW Eau Claire Foundation exceeds $6 million and includes the largest donation in support of student scholarships in university history.
Some exciting stuff happening within the system. Turning now to the student spotlight, it is my pleasure to introduce Sergeant Aaron Kloss, a senior at UW Oshkosh majoring in social work. Aaron served nearly 17 years in the Wisconsin Army National Guard, including 3 tours of duty in Iraq, prior to returning in June of 2017. He was also part of a unit that assisted with the Hurricane Katrina relief in 2005. Aaron started at UW Oshkosh 15 years after graduating from high school. He now expects to graduate in May. He already has lined up a job, but we'll let him tell us about that. Please join me in welcoming Sergeant Aaron Kloss. Sergeant.
President Cross, esteemed members of the Board of Regents, Chancellor Levitt, guests, members of my UW Oshkosh team, both present and those unable to make it today who have been instrumental in my success at UW Oshkosh. I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you today. When Timber Smith first approached me about coming up and talking to you today, it seemed like a fairly low-key situation. There wasn't a whole lot of pressure, and my first instinct was obviously to jump on the opportunity. Well, one of the things that you learn in the military is that when someone asks you or tells you to do something, gosh darn it, you do it and you get it over and done with. Little did I know, after a meeting with the Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, the Registrar, Michelle Muntz, our certifying official, and everyone else asking me if they could help me with my speech, that I realized the magnitude of what I had gotten myself into. And I was just explaining to Chancellor Levitt that I've been shot at and blown up, and I've never been as nervous as I am right now. One of the things I wanted to touch on today was, and a question I'm asked quite frequently, is why I joined the military in 2000 instead of continuing on for a college education or anything along those lines. And quite frankly, it came down to a matter of me making some poor decisions when I was a little bit younger, and my mother telling me that I was either going to choose a uniform of orange or camouflage. I chose camouflage, thankfully. I've learned so many lessons over the course of my career. I've been a member of some of the best units in the state of Wisconsin, the 1157th out of Oshkosh, the 147th out of Madison, and my final retirement with the 1158 in Beloit, and done everything from truck driving to base security to working with local nationals overseas in Iraq on my 3 deployments. More lessons than I have time to share today. But one thing I did learn along the way was that every moment of every day we have choices that we have to make, and we can choose the easy route or the hard route. The easy route is sometimes a matter of just staying with what we're comfortable with and going with what we know, and taking that hard road is quite often stepping outside of our comfort zone and looking at the long end of the long game in life. And looking at my father, who worked in a factory for a number of years when I was growing up, always working Southern swing shift, which is 2 days on, 2 days off, 3 days on, 3 days off, 12-hour shifts, and rotating days and nights every 2 weeks. I realized that when I became a husband and a father of 2 children, that was not what I wanted for my children. I wanted to be there, I wanted to give them more. And after meeting a colleague of mine, Nick Brewer, on my third deployment, who returned to UW-Oshkosh after our deployment, and his encouragement to come in and talk to the Veteran Resource Center at UW-Oshkosh, I learned that all of the barriers that I thought were keeping me from coming back to school weren't really there because of the efforts of the different GI Bills that are available to veterans, and how well that they work within the UW system. And it made a real easy choice for me to come back. My time at UW-Oshkosh has been a whirlwind of activity for me. I have been blessed on so many counts to serve as the Student Veteran Association president on campus for a number of years, which has afforded me the opportunity to collaborate with both faculty and staff on a number of committees, to serve as a student representative on Search and Screens Committee so that Timber could have his job. You're welcome, Timber. And I lost my train of thought, and there it goes. But it isn't, nothing that I've been able to do would be possible without the environment that was created on UW-Oshkosh on a larger scale, both by Chancellor Levitt, on a smaller scale, Lisa Danielson in the Registrar's Office, and the Veteran Resource Center team of inclusion and support, and being able to be with people that think the way that I think and have lived lives like I have lived. I look forward to graduating in May. I plan on continuing on for a master's degree after that. As President Cross stated, I recently accepted a position in the Registrar's Office at UW-Oshkosh as a student status examiner. So I'm learning how to do curriculum mods and all that stuff, and it's super exciting. And my life at UW-Oshkosh has been blessed, and I hope that by continuing on with UW-Oshkosh in the future, I can give that kind of experience to more student veterans and non-traditional vets and traditional vets along the way. So again, I thank you all the opportunity to come and talk to you today. Again, I did not realize it was going to be quite this when I accepted it, but I'm glad that I had the opportunity to come and talk to you today. And one more thing before I let President Cross get into his little come up here and talk to me. I have a challenge coin from the UW-Oshkosh Student Veteran Association that I'd like to present to President Cross on behalf of the Board of Regents for all the support that you've given to student veterans, non-traditional veterans, and students across the UW system.
Sergeant, you make us all proud. Thank you. I would also like to have those accompanying Aaron stand up. So Timber Smith, who is Veterans Resource Coordinator, would you stand? Michelle Munns, Veterans Benefits Coordinator, and Jean Pat, Student Academic Affairs Officer, would you stand? So thank you for the work you do to support veterans. I return to you, President Bailey.
Thank you, President Cross. I'll now call upon Regent Whitburn to present a report of the actions taken by the Business and Finance Committee. Chairman Whitburn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Regent President Bailey. The committee met earlier this morning, as you know. The report of gifts, grants, and contracts received across the system in the first quarter of fiscal year 2018 was encouraging. Total dollars were $511 million. These dollars represent an increase of $10 million from the same period last year. Interestingly, federal awards in the first quarter of the current fiscal year were up $65 million. The committee acted on two important resolutions, and I would suggest that we deal with them this morning separately. As you know, our $550 million UW Trust Fund has been managed by system staff. Doug Hare, who's been handling this assignment for us, is leaving. And as a result, Regent Stile, who heads our investment committee, of our Business and Finance Committee and I, together with Vice President Sean Nelson, have been dialoguing with SWIB in recent months with an eye toward having SWIB handle this money for us. We have $550 million in our trust fund. At SWIB, they manage over $100 billion. Meanwhile, Chapter 36, the statutes that guide and ground our work here at the university, explicitly give us the option of contracting with SWIB for this purpose. In addition to managing retirement dollars for Wisconsin state and municipal employees, which I think everybody knows about, SWIB also handles funds for the State Historical Society, the State Life Insurance Fund, the EdVest Tuition Trust Fund, and the Injured Patient and Families Compensation Fund. SWIB's board met several weeks ago and voted to authorize their staff to work with our staff to negotiate an appropriate contract. The resolution before you authorizes us to proceed to finalize an appropriate contract under which we would begin to move our trust fund assets to SWIB for ongoing management. Regent Stile and I, together I know with Regent Mueller, who chaired this committee previously, believe that this action will significantly strengthen our fiduciary oversight of system assets. Therefore, I will move Resolution 12B.
Second.
Receiving a motion and a second, is there any discussion on the resolution? Regent Farrell.
Will this give us a uniform gain annually for these funds? In other words, they're going to invest them. And right now, they're invested all over the place by their individual parties. And SWIB does an awfully good job with their money, historically following it.
Right.
And so they will all get the same uniform gain percentage annually from how SWIB will handle these?
I would call on Vice President Nelson to respond. They would put in place an appropriate platform of management of our dollars, consistent with the goals of the givers, which we have thousands of different gifts that have come to us over an extended period of time, dollars given at individual campuses across the system that have not come to the respective campus foundations.
Sure.
Yeah, I think generally the asset allocation will stay the same for the most part. It doesn't map very neatly between what we're doing now and what SWIB primarily does. I think that's part of the conversations we'll start to have over the coming 6-7 months. But I do think ultimately our investment policy statement will be the indication of where our asset allocation will be. And that will still be under the purview of the board to make decisions on how that happens. But of course, I'm going to defer to SWIB management, hopefully, to help us guide that process.
Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and thank you. Back to you, Regent Whitburn.
I now have an informal question for the board. According to our council, under the statutes and our governance rules, formal approval of a final contract is not required by the board. It's a discretionary decision. Frankly, my recommendation is that we delegate to President Cross and Vice President Nelson, with some oversight from Regent Stile and myself, the responsibility for getting this contract done and over to SWIB. Are we comfortable with that approach? Thank you. The committee also approved revisions to 2 Regent policy documents associated with SEG fees. The recently enacted state budget directed the university to bring consistency to how our various campuses administer allocable and non-allocable SEG fees. This required updates and significant changes to Regent policies 30-3 and 30-5. Once we approve these changes, if we do here, and the board in our committee approve them unanimously, they will be submitted to the Joint Finance Committee for their 14-day passive review. I would move approval of Resolution 12C.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Yeah, Regent Higgins, go ahead.
Regent Bailing, I note that under the section student university fees, permitted student university fees expenditures, section C number 3, which is student media expenditures 4. Number 3 includes permission for students to spend money on film and videotape productions. I have a sneaking suspicion that most of our students today wouldn't have a clue what a film and a videotape production is. And so maybe after this is over, we might want to take a look at some of the language.
Very fair point. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and thank you. Anything further, Regent Whitburn?
No, sir.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 5 on our agenda. At this time, we're pleased to welcome our colleagues from Wisconsin Public Broadcasting as we share in their celebration of their 100-year anniversary. On behalf of the board, congratulations. President Cross, please make some introductions.
Thank you, Regent President Bailing. This is a remarkable achievement for Wisconsin Public Radio. No other public radio station is celebrating 100 years, a birthday at 100 years, not even the British Broadcasting Corporation. We here in Wisconsin started this important venue. It seems to me that WPR captures the essence of the Wisconsin idea, our commitment to bring what we have learned in the classroom and our commitment to bring what they have learned in the public arena back to the university. From the beginning, these commitments have formed WPR and they've helped them do what they do so well. In addition, they've added the latest technology to reach out and to connect people with news and ideas that inform and enlighten. When it was first launched, WPR focused on crop prices and weather forecasts. True, news you can use. Years later, public radio brought the opera into the barns for this farm boy in Michigan. And lively discussions of politics and poetry, science and social issues, and so much more into the living rooms and daily commutes of countless listeners. So congratulations on this centennial anniversary, and thank you. So Malcolm, you and your team have done a wonderful job. Regent Bailing?
Malcolm Brett, Director of Broadcast and Media Innovations, join us now. Members of the board and public, let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you, Regent President Bailing, Regents, and President Cross for the opportunity to celebrate 100 years of outstanding public service through Wisconsin Public Radio, Wisconsin Public Television, and instructional communication systems. Invented here, about 4 blocks away, public broadcasting, and in some ways all of broadcasting, began and traces its roots to the University of Wisconsin, to Science Hall, to Professor Earl Terry, and the Wisconsin idea. I'd like to share this brief video to show you just a glimpse of our first 100 years.
In 1917, UW professor Earl M. Terry broadcast music from the university's radio station for the first time. In that moment, a bold and far-reaching experiment began within the University of Wisconsin to connect all of Wisconsin's citizens to engaging educational content through emerging technological advances. That first seed of progress grew into Wisconsin Public Radio and later Wisconsin Public Television,
Just like Dragnet.
setting the stage for national public broadcasting as we know it today.
The game is on.
I see. Isn't it beautiful?
And for the past 100 years, our combined effort has done more than anyone expected and has so much more to do.
This is WHA, your state station.
From Professor Terry's breakthrough of scientific innovation, the university quickly saw the possibilities of using this new technology to serve families across the state. And they did it by creating WHA Radio, one of the very first radio stations in the country.
The Wisconsin School of the Air presents...
Within a few decades, WHA Radio made a name for itself in Wisconsin, and soon to be known as Wisconsin Public Radio. WHA had become the bedrock of public information in Wisconsin.
Good morning, it's 8:30. I'm Maureen McCullum in Wisconsin Public Radio News.
The dedication of station WHA-TV is another expression of Wisconsin's interest in exploring every possible means of education.
In 1954, the University of Wisconsin took the next step. With the growing popularity of television and its ability to engage and educate audiences, the university invested in its own educational TV station, WHA Television.
Once upon a time.
Guten Morgen, Herr Amt.
Have your papers all ready in your crayons?
Children learned while being entertained. Citizens were better informed, and life in Wisconsin was enhanced through the work of public broadcasting.
Education taken to the people where they live.
I think we call this the American spirit.
Key to our success was the marriage of high-quality content and easy access. Through continuous innovation, Wisconsin Public Broadcasting ensured that its commitment to inform and engage the Badger State could be counted on.
I don't know if you could really be a good citizen of Wisconsin without watching Wisconsin Public Television and listening to public radio.
Wisconsin Public Broadcasting today carries on the university's mission of bringing easily accessible education and information to the people of our state.
Well, I think it's a great thing.
We connect Wisconsin communities, providing a platform and a voice in civic and cultural conversations.
Is this the local expression of the American story?
We provide students, parents, and educators with research-proven educational resources to encourage lifelong learning.
One of the most fundamental questions that we are trying to answer.
And we provide all this content on established and emerging platforms to ensure universal access that offers a stronger and brighter future for all Wisconsinites.
How are we constantly challenging ourselves to not be caught by our legacy, but to use that to empower us to think about what is that next opportunity and the next big thing?
From the birth of radio to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, PBS, and NPR, public broadcasting begins in Wisconsin.
This is an historic moment.
And it began with the university's investment in Wisconsin Public Radio and Wisconsin Public Television. During our next 100 years, we will continue providing the best Wisconsin Public Broadcasting has to offer. From the latest discoveries to the greatest stories to every family in the state. We set out on this mission together 100 years ago, and we're just getting started. Join us as we celebrate where public broadcasting began.
Before I go further with my remarks, I need to dispel a myth that is amok within our staff. I was not there at the beginning. It's not surprising that the University of Wisconsin gave rise to the first public broadcasting in the country, or that we would flourish within the university, becoming among our country's most listened to, most watched, and most respected public broadcasting services. The university's mission perfectly reflects the possibilities of Wisconsin Public Broadcasting, with phrases from systems mission such as develop human resources, discover and disseminate knowledge, extend knowledge and its application beyond the boundaries of the campus, serve and stimulate society, educate people and improve the human condition, and search for the truth. We hear the mission of Wisconsin Public Broadcasting in those words. It's what we do at WPR and WPT and instructional communication systems every day. We articulate it as educating, informing, entertaining, engaging, and inspiring everyone in Wisconsin. Imagine the revelatory experience of 1917 when listeners heard the very first broadcasts in this country. And imagine how it changed their lives. connecting people at a time without radio, without television, and when only 1 in 8, some 12% of the households in the country, even had a telephone. We connected the university and the world beyond to the front parlor and the milking parlor, President Cross, and vice versa. Technology was the vehicle, but the payload and our real value is always and always has been timely, relevant, Wisconsin-focused programming. It took a certain amount of imagination to create early radio programming for the public. Consider an early entry from 1934 when Let's Draw taught school children how to draw on the radio. That took a certain amount of audacity. And it worked. Over the years, more local Wisconsin icons have taught children and adults alike, and Wisconsinites have fond memories of their radio and TV teachers like Ranger Mac, Bob Hum, the Friendly Giant, and Pops Gordon. From there was a small leap to the next giant innovations in educational communications in 1954, WHA television, 1965, instructional communication systems, and then the Ideas Network, Wisconsin's daily news, civic, and cultural discussion. Most recently, our 24/7 children's channel brings wonderful, authentic, educational, and trustworthy children's programming 24/7, because in fact, there is a need 24 hours a day to have good, nourishing children's programming. Our service today is still informed by the goals articulated for us by Dr. William Leidy, correspondence educator in Extension in 1933, when he commended us to serve households, public schools, public interests, public enterprise, and the interests of informed public opinion. Our work is and always has been about those publics. The homemaker who learned about nutrition, the child who learned to sing and draw, the voter who learned about the issues, the Milwaukee student who in her classroom learned about and saw in Vel Phillips a role model, the farmer who got his crops in before the storm, the retiree in Superior who saw an inspired lecture about the physics of dark matter, the parents who watched their child learn on Sesame Street, and the teacher in the classroom, the veteran who found new access to resources and a new voice for her experiences, the hearing impaired viewer who rejoices at our closed captions for all locally produced programs, the listener who calls in to comment on the issues of the day, the Native American who saw his tribe's history on the air and in the classroom, and the stakeholder somewhere in Wisconsin watching the live stream of this meeting right now, which we originate. In our beginning in the early 20th century, information void everywhere. We were a beacon, linking people to ideas, information, and inspiration. Our essentialness derived not only from the vital information we brought, but at that time, because we were the only game in town, the only source. For most people today, access is not a problem in that sense. There's access beyond measure. But with hundreds of channels of cable TV, satellite radio, laptops, cell phones, Facebook, Twitter, and more isn't always better. Those sources bring a tidal wave of filtered, often unattributed, often inauthentic content 24/7. And in this world, the authentic, well-researched, in-depth, and local information from Wisconsin Public Broadcasting is more important than ever before. Our programming stands out as local, coherent, organized, authentic, and reliable. This helps explain why Wisconsin Public Television is among the most watched public television stations in the country, and listenership to WHA and Wisconsin Public Radio is at record levels today. 2 days ago, November 7th, we marked the 50th anniversary of Congress's passage of the Public Broadcasting Act of 1967. It created the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, NPR, and PBS, just about 50 years behind us. In celebrating that anniversary, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting's board also recognized the University of Wisconsin for 100 years of service with a resolution of appreciation. There's a framed copy of it over on the table over there, and I'm just going to read you a couple of highlights from the corporation's unanimous resolution. The Board of Directors of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting recognizes the extraordinary contributions of Wisconsin Public Radio and Wisconsin Public Television on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of voice broadcasts of 9XM, the experimental broadcast station licensed to the University of Wisconsin. The inauguration of these voice broadcasts is recognized as the earliest public broadcasting service in the country. Wisconsin Public Radio and Television have extended the learning resources and expertise of the University of Wisconsin so that all may take full and equal advantage of civic and economic opportunity, make broad and deep social connections, and strengthen democracy. We mark the 100th anniversary of 9XM's first broadcasts in the service and excellence of Wisconsin Public Radio and Wisconsin Public Television with respect, admiration, and gratitude. For the last 100 years, and for the next, our passion for the Wisconsin idea and our service to Wisconsin audiences has and will continue to be driven by our audience's needs. Over at Radio Hall, a few blocks away, there's a mural by John Stella, who in 1943 commemorated our launch. And there's a copy of the mural on that table over there, which I'm pleased to present to the Regents today. I should point out that there was a terrible steam event in Radio Hall back in May. About 300 or 400 degrees of steam heat permeated the building. And the next morning, fortunately no one was hurt, the next morning as we were looking at the devastation of equipment and papers and storage and items and whatnot, the mural was largely intact. And we asked the folks who were doing the rehab how it was possible. And they said, well, that's easy. It's because the paint was lead and the backing was asbestos. They can be our friend. We love this mural because not only because it captures our history, but because it expresses the magical confluence of technology, information, and audience-centric programming, and that's our hallmark. As you look at the mural, you'll see on the left students and researchers advancing science and technology. In the center, administrators and professors shaping academic outreach. And to the right, the program creators that best engage the public in the work of those researchers and professors. It's a trifecta. The transformational innovation of Wisconsin public media continues to evolve, reaching audiences in ways that were once unimagined, and evolving to reach today's audience from the milking parlor to the home, the office, the car, and any device anywhere in the world that can be connected to the internet. Beginning with a seminal broadcast from a small lab to a single home in Madison, the experiment of Wisconsin Public Broadcasting blossomed over a century. And today, with our partners at the Educational Communications Board and with campus partners around the state, we now serve 500,000 listeners a week and 500,000 Wisconsin Public Television viewers each and every week through uncounted radios, televisions, smartphones, tablets, and receivers. We're mindful of our legacy, but we're focused on the future and how we'll serve Wisconsin moving forward. And as we embark on our second century, we look forward to reporting back to you on our second 100 years. For now, we thank you for your support and for your appreciation of our work. Thank you.
We have some questions.
Uh-oh.
We do have some time on our agenda this morning, so if board members do have questions for Malcolm, know that they're certainly welcome to have those. Regent Milner.
Considering some of the long-term residents around the table, I was a new arrival in 1976. I moved here as a young wife and mom, with stay-at-home mom with 3 children. And as I scrubbed floors, University of the Air was my entertainment. I very much valued it. But what I valued most of all, coming to a brand new state that I knew very little about, was the news from around the state, which I'd never experienced before. It was something I thought was unique, because I had listened to public radio in the other state that I lived in before. But the news that came around from the state really introduced me to the state of Wisconsin in ways that I think very few states have an opportunity. Would you like to speak to that a little bit, and what kinds of reporting you have from all throughout the state?
Our statewide reach is really the product of visions of a lot of people. Certainly the Wisconsin idea is at the core of it. But back in the 1950s, a bipartisan committee of the legislature, led by some pretty recognizable names, Senator Walter John Chilson and David Obey, realized that public broadcasting that was flourishing in Madison and Milwaukee was something that the rest of the state ought to experience. And because public radio licenses and television licenses were dispersed around the state, as the state network was built out, the licensees, many of which are licensed to the university, realized we had the opportunity to band together and create a statewide service, because in Wisconsin, we define local as the state of Wisconsin. And in a very rural state, it was recognized early on that the ability to connect with the information and the cultural and entertainment that we could bring people would be an essential part of the quality of life for people in the state. So it really was through the vision of the university to invest and apply for licenses early, the enthusiasm of people around the state to support the stations, and the state legislature's investment in building out that infrastructure. Because I talked earlier about how important our content is, and it's certainly all about the content. But without that infrastructure, we wouldn't have the context to create that statewide identity. And then finally, a few years after you arrived, Regent Milner, the university and the Educational Communications Board made common cause to consolidate our resources to best serve all of our audiences around the state and to create a much more effective reach around the state. And that's a time when our work really blossomed.
Thank you. Regent Style.
I have the privilege of serving on the ECB board with you, and maybe just for the benefit of the rest of the regions, could you just comment as to what you see as the future of public broadcasting as we look out into the next 100 years?
Sure. You know, the future is more confusing than ever. One of the things that we talk about is that we are based on technology, but the technology we use and the way we use it is absolutely determined by how the public will receive our material. And so over time, we moved from AM radio to FM radio, from FM radio to television, and high-definition radio, and high-definition television, and the internet. And more, we will be creating content that will be found. The word that we use more and more is, how will our material be discoverable? Because in the past, it was discoverable but when you looked at something called TV Guide. I know some people around the table remember what that is. In the future, people will find us based on the very specific material that they want. And we are constantly testing, often succeeding and sometimes failing, at developing new resources that will be embraced online. One thing we know is that however we are received in ways that exist today or are today unimaginable, the value of the content is what will draw people to us. And however they access it, if the content is valuable, they will find it. We work very hard to develop new packaging, which means shorter, very often shorter presentations. And we have invested significantly in developing online presence to make sure that we will meet our audiences where they are. One brand new project that Extension invested in early, we call Wiscontext. And it's really based on the recognition that people are interested in certain informational areas and in certain amounts of depth. And so using the knowledge that comes out of our colleagues at Cooperative Extension and public radio and public television, we now have a broadcast and web service that presents a wide range of information about any given topic. If it's about a drought, we will have news about it, we will have the economic impact about it, we'll have information about what it means to your garden and maybe crop prices, and bring it all together in a coherent way so that it's discoverable. And we're working more and more on being discoverable and always being worth discovering.
Other regions. Regent Evers.
Thanks for the presentation, and I had the pleasure, the first grader, to participate in Let's Sing. Let's Make the Rafters Ring. I think I could do the whole song if you wanted it. And also I had the opportunity to actually have a class in radio, the Radio Hall too, as a student. The question I have though is almost all media today, including public media, is attacked because perceived bias. And I'm just curious, not to go into the bias, but how do you respond to that?
Well, in the first place, our obligation is to serve everyone in the state, and that means to recognize that there are a lot of perspectives and that we have a responsibility to bring a lot of perspectives. We work extremely hard at maintaining, developing, communicating, and testing ourselves on our behaviors. And our behaviors are all about thoroughness, accuracy, and fairness. And one of the things I look at is when we invite elected officials, when we invite prominent leaders, when we invite university presidents to come on the air, will they do it? And most typically the answer is yes. And the answer is yes because they know when they come on our air, they're going to get a fair shake. They may get difficult questions, but they will get fair questions that have been researched and that are relevant. We meet regularly with our senior staff and with our editorial staff to make sure that we are adhering to our obligations and our policies regarding fairness and to the degree we can find balance in presenting issues. We believe that our listenership and our viewership and our donors come from all perspectives and that they find an authentic and credible source, and we work every day to be that.
Regent Hall.
I wanted to congratulate you again on the anniversary. I had the honor of serving on the committee representing the Board of Regents at one point, and what I really learned is how critical public television is because of the various stories that are being told and varying viewpoints, but I think the way it's handled, it really allows for a lot of education on issues that are close to the heart and can be very sensitive. So just again, I salute you for all that you do, and through some, I think sometimes challenging times, as Regent Evers indicated, I think we can still work through all of that and provide the public with the needed information. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Regent Higgins.
Thank you, Regent President Baling. Malcolm, when I was here on campus in the late 60s and early 70s, I was a student of Professor Ron Bornstein, who was one of the giants of public broadcasting. And I remember that there was a bit of a controversy because you've referred to WHA as the first public broadcasting station in the nation. But back then, WHA's logo, harking back to 9XM, was the oldest station in the nation, based on the time when we began broadcasting in voice on a regular schedule. But we haven't claimed that. Is that, did we lose that argument with, I think it was KDKA out of Pittsburgh?
Well, it is KDKA, and I'm a little nervous because you invoked my mentor, Ron Bornstein, who's mentored a lot of the folks on our staff and at one time had my job as well as serving as Executive Vice President of the system. We often claim to be the oldest station in the nation, and I dare anyone to prove it's not true. KDKA in Pittsburgh has a claim to being the oldest station in the nation. They are part of the Westinghouse network, and Westinghouse claims they have a station that's older than KDKA. So in service to academic authenticity, we are the oldest public broadcaster in the nation, and we are indisputably the longest consecutively broadcasting station in the nation, because during World War I, when every other radio station in the country was required to turn off its transmitters for security purposes, we managed to talk the Navy into doing some testing over the Great Lakes with us. And so we have been continuously broadcasting since 1917, the oldest continuously broadcasting station in the nation.
questions for Malcolm?
I have one, if I may. Malcolm, could you talk about funding? What percentage of your funding, your cost of operation, really comes from the state? What comes from the federal government? What comes from donations?
Sure. Our funding mix today, it's different than it was when I started. When I started, public broadcasting was about 80% government funded. Today, the budget for Wisconsin Public Broadcasting is about 10% from the federal government, about a third through the university and the Educational Communications Board, and the rest of it we raise. And I'm very pleased to say that a reflection of the quality of our service and some very assertive, some may say aggressive, fundraising. Our fundraising continues to grow, and it grows not only as a percentage because government funding has declined, but it grows as a percentage and in real dollars because we have worked very hard to develop our membership base, which is growing. On the radio side, we have well over 50,000 contributors each year. On the TV side, we've grown over the last few years from the mid-50s to over 60,000 families contributing every year. And we've worked hard at courting funding from foundations and other large donors to do the work that we hope to do. Our aspirations for service always exceed our capacity, and so we're always trying to help the capacity catch up.
Any more questions?
Any other questions by board members? If not, go ahead, President Cross.
Well, as you may have heard, Malcolm Brett, the Director of Broadcast and Media Innovations, recently announced that he'll be retiring in late spring. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Malcolm for his outstanding service. Malcolm has been a national leader in public broadcasting through his 34-year career, serving as Director of Television at Wisconsin Public Television prior to his tenure as Director of the Broadcasting and Media Innovations Division. He's widely recognized for his support of the mission and power of public broadcasting and the special role that the station plays in local communities. And Malcolm, I want to say you may not have been present in 1917, but you embody the principles and values of those that did found WHA. And you have worked to instill and promote that in the employees at public television, public radio, and throughout broadcasting. And in fact, nationally. I think you influence the corporate public broadcasting arena very strongly. He's widely respected in all those arenas, so I want to congratulate you, Malcolm, and wish you all the best. Thanks for all you've done for public broadcasting in Wisconsin and throughout the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, President Cross. Thank you.
And I would be remiss, I think, if we didn't at least recognize Gene Purcell. Gene, would you stand from the Educational Communications Corporation Board? They've formed a wonderful partnership, Malcolm and Gene have, and it's been just such a wonderful thing for Wisconsin, and we appreciate that very much. John, Regent Bailey?
Next on the agenda is vet certification. In his first year in office, President Cross, who is a Vietnam veteran, launched a new program to recognize and inspire the great work being done by the UW system to support veterans. Student veterans represent a small portion of the total student count on UW campuses, less than 3%. But they're also a growing segment of the campus population. Since the Wisconsin GI Bill was implemented in 2005, the number of student veterans and dependents served by UW institutions has more than doubled. Today, we want to recognize the significant work on behalf of veterans at 7 of our UW campuses. For that, I'll turn the floor over to President Cross.
Bear with me for a few minutes as I describe what this certification involves. So over the years, the UW system has made a strong commitment to the veterans who come to our campuses, and we're very proud of that. We're regularly recognized as providing veteran benefits that are among the most comprehensive in the nation. We are also well known for the supportive services provided by our campuses for veterans and family members. 3 years ago, we created the UW System Veterans Education and Transition to Success certification program. We call it our VETS certification. It is designed to recognize campuses that have met a rigorous series of criteria in helping student veterans succeed. To earn this certification, campuses must do the following. Number one, they must train campus faculty and staff on issues that student veterans may face in transitioning to college, including scheduling, making connections, study habits, and the health and welfare challenges they faced. Second, they must conduct regular surveys of student veterans to identify needs and get input. Third, they must establish a campus steering committee composed of student veterans, faculty, and staff to share information and provide guidance to campus leadership. Fourth, they must provide student veteran-focused orientation programming. Fifth, they must identify internal and external counseling resources to assist student veterans with academic, financial, and social concerns. And finally, they must provide a dedicated space on campus where student veterans can meet peers and receive help with benefits, enrollment, and connecting to supporting services. The VETS program helps to publicly salute an institution's commitment in the broad areas of facilities, training, data and research, affordability, leadership services, and collaboration, all with a larger goal of making their educational experience more accessible, affordable, and successful. This year, 7 institutions have met the criteria and will be presented with their VETS certifications reward. UW Eau Claire, UW La Crosse, UW Oshkosh, UW Parkside, UW Platteville, UW River Falls, and UW Stout. I would like to invite the chancellors, other representatives from these institutions to come forward and receive the honorary plaque as we make the presentations and take photos. I invite you to check the big screen where we'll be showing some highlights of these achievements on behalf of veterans at each of the recipient campuses. So first up, UW Eau Claire, Chancellor Schmidt. Chancellor Schmidt will join us up here in a moment for a presentation and a photo as we present this plaque. Next up is UW La Crosse, Chancellor Gao. UW Oshkosh. Can I get that first row to join me? Chancellor Ford from UW Parkside. Dewey Stoutbotmeyer, and I believe we have a student. Oh, UW River Falls. You don't want me.
No, but just away from the screen.
That's a congratulations to all of our chancellors and to your respective campus communities. That brings all of our four-year institutions are now VETS certified, which is something we can be very proud of. The high caliber of services and programs being provided is what all of our students and veterans deserve. So with that, I turn it back to you, Regent President Bailey.
Thank you. We will now break for lunch, which will be served next door in the Overture Room, and I would ask that we reconvene at 12:30.